Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the massive and frankly, incredibly complex world of business-to-business marketing. I mean, for a lot of us, when we think about marketing or buying stuff, we immediately think of ourselves, right? Just everyday consumers browsing a store aisle or clicking add to cart online. But running parallel to our everyday purchases is this hidden economic engine that is vastly larger and infinitely more intricate. So our goal today? We're going to decode exactly how companies buy the things they need to literally keep the world running.
To instantly wrap our heads around why B2B transactions actually matter, just think about this staggering number, $176 billion. That's not the whole B2B market, folks. That is the scale of the heavy equipment industry alone in a single year. We're talking about titans of industry, places like Caterpillar. So we aren't talking about a quick, impulsive swipe of a credit card here. We're talking about global, extremely high-stakes purchases where just one single lost sale can mean the loss of hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. If you really want to understand the global economy, you absolutely have to understand how these massive business buyers operate.
So here is our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll go inside the B2B market. Second, we're going to meet the buying center. Then we'll cover the types of buying situations, the 8-step buying journey, digital procurement and social selling, and finally, government and institutional buyers. Let's get right into it. Section 1, Inside the B2B Market, a Hidden Giant. Okay, let's dive into this and explore what makes this hidden giant so distinctly different from the consumer world we're all used to. Think of it as a you versus them scenario. When you buy a single laptop for yourself, it's a pretty simple individual decision, right? But what happens when a university needs to buy 1,000 laptops? Well, the entire dynamic shifts. The business market deals with far fewer buyers overall, but those buyers are significantly larger. And their needs are based on something called derived demand. That basically means the university only needs those 1,000 laptops because of the demand from 1,000 incoming students. On top of that, business demand is often inelastic in the short term, like a sudden drop in price isn't going to make a factory suddenly buy twice as many robotic arms if they don't have the customer demand to justify running them. Plus, this is definitely not amateur hour. These massive purchases are negotiated by highly trained purchasing professionals.
Moving on to Section 2, Meet the Buying Center, the cast of characters. Now here is the central secret of the entire B2B world. Businesses don't actually make purchases. The human beings inside those businesses do. And in the corporate world, this group of humans is called the buying center. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is that the buying center is not some fixed, formal department with a fancy nameplate on an office door. Not at all. Instead, it's a dynamic, shape-shifting group of people drawn from all across the company. And its exact makeup actually changes depending on what it is they're buying at the time.
You can almost think of the buying center like a specialized heist crew, where everyone plays a very distinct role. First up, you have the users. These are the people who will actually be operating the equipment or the software on a daily basis. Then there are the influencers. Think engineers or finance experts, the folks who define the technical specifications and crunch all those numbers. Next are the buyers. These are the folks who have the formal authority to actually negotiate the terms and pick the suppliers. Sitting above them are the deciders, the higher-ups holding the ultimate power to approve that final supplier choice. And finally, we have the gatekeepers. This could be an executive assistant or maybe a tech screener. They control the flow of information to everyone else in the crew. So to win a B2B sale, a marketer basically has to play detective and figure out exactly who is playing which role.
Section 3, Types of Buying Situations, from Routine to Revolutionary.
Now, this crew we just talked about, they don't assemble the same way every single time. The stakes change wildly depending on what the company actually needs, and that dictates the type of buying situation they find themselves in. We can break these down into 3 major categories. First is a straight rebuy. This is just a routine reorder handled by the purchasing department without much fuss at all, kind of like restocking printer paper. Next is a modified rebuy, which takes a bit more effort. Here, the buyer wants to change some specs, maybe negotiate better prices, or even check out a few new suppliers. But the real big one, the one that takes up the largest slice of risk, is the new task. This is a first-time, highly complex purchase. Think along the lines of a factory switching over to an entirely new automated assembly line. Because the new task carries the absolute most risk, it naturally pulls the largest number of people into our buying center to make the call. The absolutely crucial thing to remember here is that in those super high-stakes new task situations, buyers are desperately looking for ways to reduce their risk. And because of this, they heavily prefer what's called system selling. That means buying a complete solution to a problem from one single seller. Let's look back at our earlier example of Caterpillar. When a massive mining company buys from Caterpillar, they aren't just buying a heavy piece of iron machinery. No, they're buying an entire system. They're getting the machine, the constant tech monitoring of that machine's health, and the rapid on-site repair services to prevent any wildly expensive downtime. Ultimately, they are buying peace of mind from a single, reliable partner.
Section 4. The 8-step buying journey, the complex path to purchase.
When a buying center actually undertakes one of those high-risk new task purchases, they definitely don't just wing it. They embark on a formal, rigorous marathon of a process. Here is how the first half of that journey usually plays out. It all starts on day one with problem recognition. That's when someone either realizes an internal need or gets sparked by an external stimulus, like seeing a cool demo at a trade show. Next, the team huddles up to outline the general need and the technical product specifications. By month 1, they are aggressively conducting a supplier search to compile a solid list of qualified vendors. And that naturally leads to month 2, proposal solicitation, which is where the buying center formally invites those chosen suppliers to submit detailed and often highly complex written proposals or presentations.
Let's move to the final stages and see how this all builds. In month 3, we hit supplier selection. This is where the really intense negotiations happen over prices and contract terms. Once the winner is finally chosen, we move into month 4 for the order routine specification. This is all about finalizing delivery timelines, return policies, and maybe even signing some blanket contracts. But get this, it doesn't actually end when the product is delivered. Year 1 brings the performance review. This is where the buyer rigorously judges the supplier to decide if they're going to continue, modify, or maybe just drop the relationship entirely moving forward.
Section 5. Digital Procurement and Social Selling, the Tech Shift.
Historically, those formal steps we just walked through involved literal mountains of paperwork and agonizing delays. But today, we're witnessing a massive tech shift where digital procurement is aggressively accelerating that traditional journey. Just consider the cloud platform Coupa. They actually helped a large retail client take a tedious, super paper-heavy requisition approval process that used to take 10 full days, and they slashed it down to just 5 hours. That is a total game changer. By letting employees view, approve, or deny purchase orders right from their smartphones, e-procurement completely eliminates paperwork. It drastically reduces transaction costs, and it frees up purchasing agents to focus on strategic, big-picture issues rather than just endlessly pushing paper around.
And tech isn't just changing how these companies buy, it's completely changing how marketers reach them. Get this, a massive 94% of B2B companies using social media rely on LinkedIn. Why is that? Well, because marketers know they aren't actually targeting faceless businesses. They need to reach those specific gatekeepers, influencers, and deciders we talked about earlier. LinkedIn's 800 million professional users give B2B marketers a direct, hyper-focused pipeline to the exact human beings making up those complex buying centers.
Section 6. Government and institutional buyers, the special sectors.
For our final section, we need to step completely outside the traditional corporate boardroom and take a look at 2 massive, entirely unique landscapes. First, we have institutional markets. These are places like schools, hospitals, and prisons, which provide goods for people in their care. They often have to operate with highly constrained low budgets, but they also have captive patrons. Contrast that reality with government markets in the US. We're talking federal, state, and local units spending a mind-blowing $2.3 trillion a year. Let that sink in. Government buying requires suppliers to submit formal bids, and they're usually awarded to the lowest bidder. Plus, the process generates excessive paperwork simply because every single penny spent is subject to open, public scrutiny from taxpayers and politicians.
To really see how incredibly complex this gets, consider the Los Angeles Unified School District, or LAUSD. Their procurement officers are responsible for feeding 650,000 students every single day. But here's the catch. They can't just go pick the cheapest food available. They actually have to impartially juggle 4 massive priorities all at once. They have to maintain basic nutrition. They need to secure the lowest cost bids for taxpayers. They must adhere to Cal OSB initiatives which mandate considerations for vendor race and gender. And finally, they have to comply with the GWSA, which demands documented reductions in environmental impact. It is just a staggering balancing act. They are weighing basic economics against strict social compliance mandates and environmental regulations, which is a world away from standard corporate buying.
So, what does this all mean? Well, it brings us to our final thought.
As we've seen today, the B2B landscape is defined by $176 billion industries, complex 8-step journeys, and lightning-fast cloud-based automation. But despite the massive scale and all those shiny digital tools, whether you are pitching to a corporate decider on LinkedIn or a school district procurement officer, the ultimate key to success remains exactly the same. You have to understand the human elements, the personal pressures, and the individual needs driving the purchase. In a world of multi-billion-dollar contracts and automated e-procurement, are you really selling to a business, or are you still just selling to a human? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep looking for the human behind the business.